He gave the world the automobile. The world's most dangerous dictator called him the greatest American alive. In 1908, the average American could not afford an automobile. A car cost more than a working family earned in 2 years. It was a luxury of the wealthy, a toy of the privileged. Henry Ford decided that was wrong. Not for moral reasons, not for political reasons, for business reasons. He believed, with absolute, unwavering conviction, that the man who built the product should be able to afford the product. What followed was the most complete transformation of daily American life in the history of the country. And behind it, one of the darkest legacies any American industrialist has ever left. His name was Henry Ford, and the world he built is still the world we live in today. He was born July 30th, 1863, in Dearborn, Michigan, the son of Irish immigrant farmers, the eldest of 6 children. A boy who grew up on 80 acres of Michigan farmland and hated every inch of it. Not because he was lazy, because his mind would not stop. He took apart every clock he could find before he was 10 years old. He reassembled them. He took them apart again to understand what he had missed. His father, William, wanted him to inherit the farm. Ford had a different inheritance in mind. At 16 years old, he walked away from Dearborn and went to Detroit. He would not look back. Detroit in the 1880s was the most mechanical city in America. Steam engines, precision metalwork, a city whose language was the language Henry Ford had been teaching himself his entire life. He found work as a machinist, then as an engineer. He educated himself at night from technical journals and mechanical manuals. He married Clara Bryant in 1888. She believed in him completely, even when no one else did, including his own father. In 1891, he was hired as chief engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company. He was good at the job, but the job was not what consumed him. What consumed him was a gasoline-powered internal combustion engine he was building in the shed behind his house. In 1896, at an industry conference in New York, a young Henry Ford found himself at the same table as Thomas Edison, the most famous inventor in the world. Someone told Edison what Ford was working on. Edison leaned across the table. He asked Ford to explain his gasoline engine. Ford grabbed a menu card and sketched the design on the back. He talked through the mechanics. He answered Edison's questions. Edison brought his fist down on the table and said, "Young man, that is the thing. You have it. Keep at it." Henry Ford later said it was the most important moment of his life. The greatest inventor in America had looked at his idea and told him to keep going. He went home to Dearborn and built his first vehicle, the quadricycle, in the shed, while Clara kept watch at the door and he worked through the night. When it was done, the shed door was too small for the car to fit through. He knocked out the wall. Ford Motor Company was founded on June 16, 1903. Henry Ford was 40 years old. He had already started and failed 2 previous automobile companies. His investors were nervous. His competitors were established. His first car sold within weeks of launch. By 1906, the Model N was the best-selling car in America. By 1908, the Model T. The car that changed everything. The Model T was not the most elegant automobile ever built. It was not the fastest or the most powerful. It was the most practical, the most reliable, the most repairable by the man who owned it with tools he already had in his barn. Ford designed it for the American farmer, the American worker, the American family, the people no other car maker was building for. And then he built the machine that would build the machine. The Highland Park Moving Assembly Line. 1913. Before the assembly line, building one Model T took 12 hours and 28 minutes. After the assembly line, 93 minutes. Ford could produce more cars in a single day than his competitors built in a month. By 1918, half of all the cars in the United States of America were Model Ts. Half of every car in the entire country, one man, one factory, one idea. In January 1914, Henry Ford announced the $5 workday. He doubled the prevailing wage overnight. The newspapers thought he had lost his mind. Other industrialists were furious. Economists predicted it would bankrupt the company. Ford's reasoning was simple and radical. The men who build my cars should be able to buy my cars. 10,000 men showed up outside the Highland Park plant the next morning looking for work. Police were needed to manage the crowd. The $5 day did not bankrupt Ford. It made him the richest man in the world. Workers who earned $5 a day bought Model Ts. They bought homes. They shopped at stores that bought goods from factories that hired more workers. Henry Ford did not invent the American middle class, but he is the man most responsible for making it real. Before we go further, drop in the comments right now. Do you think a business owner paying workers enough to buy the product they make is good business or good ethics, or both? I want this debate below. But there is another Ford. The same man who built the American middle class published one of the most widely distributed anti-Semitic publications in American history. In 1919, Henry Ford purchased a small Michigan newspaper called the Dearborn Independent. He used it as a platform. For 91 consecutive weekly editions, the Dearborn Independent published anti-Semitic articles under Ford's ownership and direction. The articles blamed Jewish people for virtually every problem in American society. They drew on discredited forgeries. They were vicious, sustained, and systematic. Ford compiled the articles into a 4-volume book called The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem. He distributed it widely. It was translated into multiple languages and circulated internationally. Among those who read Ford's publications and was deeply influenced by them was Adolf Hitler. Hitler kept a portrait of Henry Ford on the wall of his Munich office. He mentioned Ford by name in Mein Kampf, the only American mentioned in the book. He called Ford a great man, a model, the one American he admired. In July 1938, on Henry Ford's 75th birthday, representatives of the Nazi German government traveled to Dearborn, Michigan, and presented Ford with the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the highest civilian honor the Nazi government could bestow on a non-German. Ford accepted it. The ceremony took place 5 years after Hitler had come to power, 3 years before America entered the war. The world had seen what the Nazi government was. Ford accepted the medal anyway. Ford's darkness did not stop at the printed page. Inside his factories, Ford ruled through fear. He built a private security force called the Service Department, run by a former boxer and street fighter named Harry Bennett. The Service Department's job was simple: prevent workers from organizing. They intimidated workers. They fired union members. They operated as Ford's private enforcement operation inside the plants. On May 26, 1937, the Battle of the Overpass. Walter Reuther and a group of United Auto Workers organizers attempted to distribute union leaflets on a public bridge outside the Ford River Rouge plant. Bennett's men beat them severely on the overpass in full view of photographers. The photographs appeared in newspapers across America. Ford was the last major American automaker to recognize the Union. He held out until 1941. Even then, he reportedly threatened to shut down the entire company rather than sign. Clara Ford told him to sign. He signed. In 1927, under threat of a significant lawsuit, Ford issued a public retraction of the Dearborn Independent's anti-Semitic articles. He claimed he had not been aware of the content, that others had been responsible. Few historians found this credible. The publication had run under his name for 8 years. He had approved its direction. The articles had made him famous in circles he clearly found flattering. The retraction stopped the publication. It did not stop the circulation of the books already distributed across the world. The damage was permanent. Henry Ford died on April 7, 1947. He was 83 years old. He died in Dearborn, the same small Michigan town he had walked away from as a 16-year-old boy with nothing but a mechanical mind and a refusal to accept the limits of the world he was born into. The Ford Motor Company he built is still one of the largest automobile manufacturers on Earth. The assembly line he invented became the foundation of modern industrial production. The $5 workday he announced became the argument that a company has a responsibility to the people who build its wealth. And the Dearborn Independent, the International Jew, and the Grand Cross of the German Eagle remain part of the same historical record. All of it belongs to Henry Ford, the man who gave ordinary Americans the freedom of movement, the man whose words helped justify the ideology that would kill 6 million people. Both of these are facts. Both are Henry Ford. History does not always give us people we can simply admire. Sometimes it gives us people we have to understand. And understanding is harder than admiring. If Ford's story is sitting with you right now, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the figures we cover on this channel are not simple. They never are. The next figure we cover built something equally extraordinary and paid an equally complicated price. You will not see them coming. That episode drops very soon. Don't miss it.